Welcome to Your Life Podcast, the place where life becomes that little bit simpler. Welcome to the Your Life Podcast. I'm Angela Lockwood, and in this episode I'm interviewed by Luke and Susie of The Luke and Susie Show. We talk in this episode around making changes. Now, making changes in your life can feel really overwhelming. And usually when we're in a position where we want to change, it's because we feel overwhelmed in the first place, or we're looking for something different to do in our lives. So the whole process sometimes can be a self-fulfilling loop where we feel overwhelmed, we think about making a change, and we feel even more overwhelmed. But in this episode, I share some really simple things that you can do to basically simplify change. And there is one really important question that I always ask my clients. And I share that with Luke and Susie. And I want to share it with you too, because it can be a real game changer. Enjoy.
Luke and Susie with faith, family, culture. And Suze, anybody can make a change. Anybody can make change in their life. As I discover when I navigate the roads. I turn left and I turn right. The question is whether or not they're deliberate turns and whether or not they're in the right direction. That change and making things adjust in our life is not as simple as we think it should be, like me driving and getting from point A to point B.
We're going to be talking about how to know when it's, I guess, time to make a change and slowing down long enough to realise what that change needs to be.
And then doing it on purpose, like deliberately doing it, not just letting life come to us, right?
Exactly.
We're going to deal with that next with Luke and Susie.
We're catching up with Angela Lockwood. She's the author of a book called Switch Off. We want to talk today about when we recognise that something is not right in our life, that there's I don't know whether it's a dissatisfaction or things just don't seem to be going well, but we just keep going and going and going and going anyway. How do we actually make changes in our life, Angela?
This is a great one. I love this. Thanks so much for bringing this topic up again, because I think I've spoken to you guys before around the physical signs and symptoms and triggers that we feel in our body when life's getting out of kilter, like our breath, or that we've got pain in our back, or prolonged headaches, or even sometimes our jaw is clenched for a long time, so we're getting headaches from that. Our bodies are a way of telling us, hey guys, it's time to slow it down. But also our behaviour. And this is one that we often just skim over. Our behaviour also shows us that our life needs a bit of an overhaul. And what I mean by our behaviour is we can start to get quite snappy, or we can get withdrawn. So it might be like, oh, I don't care. Who cares? You start to hear these words start to come up in your language more. Or it could be that you're becoming angry. Or it could be that little things that didn't used to worry you are now becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's not just our physical things, our physical triggers that show us that it's time to slow down, but it's also our behaviour. There's also one other thing that can tell us, and that's the people in our life can start to tell us and go, wow, you look tired. Those days where you feel fantastic and someone looks at you and goes, geez, are you sick?
Yes.
You look terrible.
Surprisingly often, Angela, yes.
I'm thinking, this is the best day I've had in ages. I'm like floating on air. You look horrible, Luke. Oh, thanks.
We joke about it, but it is a really important thing to listen to. If someone looks at you and says, are you feeling okay? And you think that you're feeling all right, then maybe your tiredness or your feeling that, you're overwhelmed or feeling stressed actually starting to show through, and you're not even realising it. And if you're hearing this a little bit more from people in just different ways, it really is time to take notice, because you could be ignoring the actual state that your life is in at that moment.
Well, either way, it's definitely time to make a change. It's either change what's happening in your life or change friends, because they're not very nice and encouraging. Either way. Angela Lockwood, the author of Switch Off, is our guest. We're going to navigate this, how to actually deliberately then to respond to the signs that says it's time to make a difference. We're going to do this next with Luke and Susie.
Faith, Family, Culture. It's Luke and Susie with you. We've got Angela Lockwood with us. She's the author of a book called Switch Off. But we're talking about this whole point in our life where we realise we need to make a change.
Yep.
How do we, if people are starting to tell us we are looking tired all the time, and there's all of these other signals going on for us biologically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that say something needs to change, how do we actually figure out which part needs to change?
I love this because we often know the right things to do. So we know meditation, we know exercise, we know we've got to eat better, but sometimes those things can seem overwhelming in themselves. But I'm going to introduce you to something when I work with my clients, this is what I love to talk to them about, is to come up with what's called a decision theme. So it's a theme around, where do I feel most out of kilter in my life right now? So is it in work? Does work feel like it's overwhelming me? Is it family? Is it the fact that I don't feel healthy? So every time I go, if I go shopping or I look in the mirror or I don't feel myself, whatever it is, what is the theme in your life right now where in your heart of hearts is out of kilter? And when you have that conversation with somebody and they go, oh, you know what, it really is just my health. That is the thing that is underpinning why I feel so overwhelmed. Because it's not often... sometimes it's not just about your to-do list. I think that's a really easy cop-out where we go, there's just so much to do. Of course there's so much to do. But if we actually unravel and just peel like the onion layers away a little bit, just peel a couple of layers, the unspoken truth can often sit just a layer or two under. Yeah. And if somebody questions that and goes, hang on a minute, where do you feel most out of balance right now? Or where do you feel most out of kilter? That one question can help you come up with your answer. So I know for me a little while ago, when I was working through these things myself, it was actually my health. I used to be, really fit and healthy, and I kept living in that space all the time. And I still am fit and healthy, but not like I used to be. And so that was the one thing that was holding me back in some of the decisions I was making in my life, is that I just didn't feel healthy to where I wanted to be. So that was where I started to make my decisions around my health, rather than trying to streamline everything and cut the to-do list and, look at how I can outsource things. I actually just had to focus on my health. And once I did that, the ripple effect of that went into every other aspect of my life. So for those listeners that are listening to this and go, well, how do I make changes? I'm going to ask you this question now, is where do you feel most out of balance, or where do you feel most out of kilter in your life where you know in your heart of hearts that something has to change? Yeah. Sit with that question, and that's where you've got to start.
It's such an interesting one, and I had a boss who admirably saw me overwhelmed and stressed and, sort of flat, and so he started to take projects off me, started to block things that I wanted to do, to say, no, you got too much going on, I need you to slow down. And then he saw me decline and go worse and worse and worse until he realised the problem was not how busy I was, the problem was I was running projects that I didn't have any wins on. And I get motivated and energized by little wins and outdoing outcomes, and I was in these losing projects. And so it was quite interesting learning about myself that it's not even so much about how busy I am, it's just whether I'm having chances to celebrate wins. Yeah. That's a big motivator for me, and I was in a situation in my work where it was just loss after loss after loss, and that was hard to take for anybody, but especially for me. It's quite interesting when you learn yourself in the midst of this, Angela.
And we can't do that when we are so frantically busy. So in order to do this and really connect with what's in your heart and really what you know is not working for you, you do need to step away a little bit. And it doesn't have to be for a weekend. It could just be you go for a walk on the beach, or it could be that you go outside without your phone. It could be that you just actually leave work on time, or you go out and have lunch during your work break outside, have your lunch break outside. It doesn't have to be huge, overwhelming things we've got to do to go and find ourselves. It sometimes is just stopping and disconnecting from what we're doing and go and have a break. Yeah. And that's when you can actually sit and find some of the answers to these things that are out of kilter for us.
So good. Angela Lockwood, the book is called Switch Off. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. To find more ways to slow down and simplify your life, follow the Your Life podcast on Spotify and iTunes. And let's connect on LinkedIn and Instagram. Just look for Angela Lockwood. Don't forget, it's your life. You choose how to live it.